Yes, the Catholic Church is a denomination. Although on its face it may seem controversial to some Catholics to say this, I think that you'll find that what I am actually claiming is not actually that controversial in the end. So hear me out. This YouTube channel here is Ready to Harvest, Christian Denominations channel. I have made this channel to discuss Christians of all kinds and to compare them. Many of you who watch and enjoy these videos are Catholics. I have had a lot of good comments on my video on what Christian denominations are most like Catholics and what do Catholics and Orthodox think of each other, for example. But according to some people, I shouldn't discuss Catholics here because this is a Christian denominations channel, and the Catholic Church is not a denomination. According to some people, when we're asked the question, what is the largest Christian denomination in the United States, we shouldn't answer that it's the Catholic Church, even though the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops says that there are 71 million Catholics there. Rather, the answer should be the Southern Baptist Convention, although the 2023 numbers reported in 2024 show that there's only just short of 13 million SBC members in the U.S. My point is that when I call something a denomination, I just mean a set of congregations that share a name or history or are otherwise connected as a group. If I received a Christian magazine in the mail, I might want to know what denominations theology it advances. It might be from the perspective of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, or from the Evangelical Free Church of America, or from a Methodist perspective, or maybe a magazine that promotes the teachings of the Catholic Church. That's the idea. We just need a simple word that you can use to refer to these different groups of congregations, and the term should be neutral. Using this term to refer to a group does not mean that it is not the true church, or the original church, or the only church. It just means that there are a group of congregations that identify as being Christian. In other religions, we also use similar terms. For example, Wikipedia calls Reform Judaism a Jewish denomination, Sunni Islam a branch and denomination of Islam, and Mahayana a branch of Buddhism. Wikipedia does this because denomination is a well-understood and neutral term. Sometimes people do use the word branch to refer to subgroups, and this may work well outside of Christianity, but this term does come a bit loaded with implications some Christian groups dislike, and the Catholic Church rejects a view of Christianity called branch theory, so this is not a good neutral term for Christianity. The idea of a branch also seems to indicate a view that the group in question is not the original or trunk of the tree, which would also cause problems for it to be a neutral term. But denomination can be a fully neutral term. For example, here's what Cambridge Dictionary defines it as: a religious group that has slightly different beliefs from other groups that share the same religion. And its example is, Protestantism and Roman Catholicism are both denominations of the Christian faith. Go ahead, make a couple modifications to that definition if needed, but the word is understandable and usable. Dictionary.com says, a religious group, usually including many local churches, often larger than a sect. Is the Catholic Church a religious group? By any normal definition of the term, yes it is. Does it include many local churches? By any normal definition, yes it does. Is it larger than a sect? Who knows exactly where that line is drawn, but since the Catholic Church is bigger than any other group in Christianity and makes up 17% of the total population of the world, I'm pretty sure we have to say yes. So if that's the definition of denomination, why should anyone have a problem with calling the Catholic Church a denomination? Pope John Paul II referred to Protestant Christians, as did Pope Benedict, so viewing them as denominations within the same religion shouldn't be too controversial for Catholics. And here's the key point of this whole video. Those Catholics who say that the Catholic Church is not a denomination have a different definition for denomination. And that's fine to do. Words do have many definitions. However, we must realize that most of the time, especially in academic contexts like the academic neutrality used on this channel, the use of the word denomination to refer to the Catholic Church is entirely legitimate. So back to my channel. If there was a better term to use to say I want to talk about all of these denominations, inclusive of things like Catholics and Orthodox, I would use it. I've used group, for example, but I think this is normally too vague. Plenty of organizations might be Christian groups, but they aren't denominations with actual congregations. There are some other words that people use that are understandable and may even be neutral in academic contexts, but clearly aren't understood as neutral to refer to any denomination, Catholic or Protestant. Terms like sect or cult. Maybe the best alternate term to use would be church. But this too has problems. Some denominations don't believe that the word church should be used to refer to a denomination at all, as it should only refer to local congregations or to the entirety of Christianity, but not some subset. I will throw in here that, in contrast, the Catholic Church itself has never proclaimed the English word denomination to be problematic. The word church is also vague for me to use in place of denomination because even if it can be used to refer to a denomination, like the United Methodist Church or the Anglican Church of Canada, it also is used to just refer to one congregation, like Lakeview Church or College Park Church. And perhaps biggest of all, as it relates to Catholics, though Catholics are fine with us referring to the Catholic Church, the Vatican actually says that Protestant denominations are not churches, so using this term should be even less palatable for Catholics to propose as a term to replace denomination. But I think that most people clearly know one word that means exactly what I'm looking for: denomination. But as I said, I think the reason some Catholics are resistant to use the term is that they define it differently. Some Catholics understand the term denomination to imply something that is not the original church or the true church, but this is not a necessary part of the term denomination. Certainly, nobody would be using the term voluntarily if they believe it implied that they don't teach the truth. The definitions quoted in this video do not require that perspective. Perhaps the etymology is a problem. Now, realize the etymological fallacy. A word is not necessarily defined by how it originated. But nonetheless, let's see the etymology of denomination. The online etymology dictionary traces this etymological path from most recent to oldest, and I won't even try pronouncing these correctly. Denomination, a naming, act of giving a name to. From Old French, denomination, nominating, naming. From Latin denominationem, a calling by anything other than the proper name, metonymy. From past participle stem of denominare, to name. So the etymological meaning is essentially that the nom part of the word comes from a root nomen, which means name. And so to denominate means to give a name to. And then a denomination is something that is called by a name. There's hardly anything controversial there. Just like we call the Church of God in Christ by a name, and the Friends General Conference by a name, we call the Catholic Church by a name too. Some think that using the term denomination would demote the Catholic Church from some higher place. For example, the Catholic Church is not a denomination, it is pre-denominational. But the term denomination doesn't mean that a group didn't exist before other denominations, or that it is not the original church. So this is not a necessary distinction. Or some use the pun, Catholics aren't a denomination, Catholics are the denominator. But that's all it is, an attempt at a clever sounding statement that inherently redefines both the word denomination and the word denominator to present a false dilemma that something must be one or the other. One priest has said, a denomination is part that is fractured, broken off from the whole and then given another name. But this is simply a sectarian definition. This is not what any denomination means when they use the term. You don't find this definition on the neutral dictionary websites because it's a biased definition that isn't trying to really define, but rather to perform polemics while pretending to define. 2 final points. First, here is the only thing that this video is trying to claim that the Catholic Church is. It's the dictionary.com definition, a religious group, usually including many local churches. If you think that the Catholic Church is a religious group with many local churches, then you agree with me that it is a denomination. If you still want to say that the Catholic Church is not a denomination, then, like I said, you're using a different definition. So in that case, you should recognize that this definition I am using is a legitimate definition to use, and as such, maybe by some of the other definitions you've been used to using, the Catholic Church does not qualify, but by the definition I am using, and a commonly understood definition, it does. Secondly, this video may seem like it is picking on Catholics. It is not. I am using Catholics as the primary example because the most comments I get on this topic are from Catholics. But realize the argument I have made is not in any way theological. There are no theological implications from me using the term denomination for the Catholic Church. It's entirely related to terminology only. And I too call other groups denominations that don't like it, groups like Churches of Christ, Independent Fundamental Baptists, Calvary Chapels, and so forth. And I do think in the end that most Catholics will agree with this video, that by the definition I am using, Catholics fit. And this is why when I made my video on Holy Communion, every difference between denominations compared, people didn't tend to complain about me including the Catholic position, although that inherently implied that the Catholic Church is a Christian denomination. In fact, people would complain if I didn't include the Catholic view, because when it comes to academically and neutrally explaining all the facets of the Christian religion, leaving the Catholic Church out would be a major omission.